budget adoption meeting. If we could all stand for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second? I'm sorry?
That's a second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, at this time, we're going to open up public comment. I'm going to set a 5-minute timer so that people can speak. And if you will come up when recognized and give us your name and your district, I would appreciate it.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Allie Dore. I am in Donna's district, and I'm one of the owners of New Iberia. We have been, well, I graduated from Rappahannock County High School in 2010. And I was very moved by all of the students speaking at the last meeting. It was amazing to hear how effective and how impacted all of them are by these amazing programs that the school has to offer. One of my biggest takeaways was every time that someone would get up to speak, they're like looking over their shoulders as though to say, you either care about the children or you care about the old people. And it's now becoming a head-to-head of, I don't care about children because I care about my restaurant and I care about my livelihood and I care about the ability of locals to enjoy the place that they live in, or, you know, I care more about old people not being able to pay their taxes. And it's not us versus us, it's us versus a problem, and the problem solvers being the ones sitting in front of us. So I'm here today to talk about not raising the meals tax from 4 to 6%, not only because 50% tax increase is absolutely insane, but because it would have a severely negative effect on our business. We have, since the beginning, postured ourselves as a restaurant, as a food truck that were targeted towards locals. We opened exclusively on Thursday nights. We did not pass the local tax along to our people that were dining at the food truck. Whatever price you saw on the menu was the price that you saw on your credit card machine. There was not an additional 9.3% that was passed along to the customer, because we wanted to make sure that our food was affordable and that it was accessible to locals, which is the reason we were only open on Thursdays. While we are now unfortunately open 6 days a week and working a lot harder.
We're out.
Working a lot harder, it seems. The situation stays the same. And as grateful as we are for the tourists that come through Rappahannock County, our bread and butter is and will always be the people that live here and that come eat at our restaurant once a week, once every other week, once a month, whatever it is, that they frequent our restaurant because it's affordable, because they know that we are supporting other local businesses and sourcing local produce and sourcing local protein, and we it's a circle of life here at our restaurant, and at the end of the day, we pass that tax along to the customers. And people that are already coming in less and less as we enter a more questionable economy are going to continue seeing it as inaccessible to them to go out and eat. They're not able to come out and enjoy food at one of their favorite restaurants because they cannot afford it, and also afford to pay their light bill, and also afford to pay their increased sewer bill, and also afford to pay for everything else in their lives. So I'm not saying don't fund the schools. I'm saying don't fund the schools at the expense of small businesses that everyone claims to care so much about. People say they care about small businesses. They say that they want us here, that they want to see more of us. Well, then don't tax us out of our lease. We would love to stay for the entire 13 years that we have extended on our lease, but that only happens if we can afford to keep our lights on. So that is my piece. Please do not raise the meals and lodging tax.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi,
Oh, I'm
everyone.
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please.
I didn't see you. I'm
That's
sorry.
all right. I was joking.
I'll be sure.
This is probably more interesting anyway.
If you'd like to give us your name and your district.
Yeah, my name is Jeffrey Knight, and I'm in the Hampton District. And Madam Chair and member of the board, I'm just here to make a few comments associated with the tax increase. This is yesterday's Wall Street Journal, which featured a 7,000 person layoff for Microsoft, pretty well-run company. I suspect their board would have preferred to vote for more revenue. However, in the private sector, of course, that's not an option. And we're here talking tonight about a tax increase for our county. And the school needs more money. And I've tried to catch up on all the things that have been said and reported on by the school system, including the SIFT and their 5-year plan. And one thing I've found disappointing is there's much talk about revenue, but very scant talk about expenditures. And we all know there's two sides to the ledger, and it seems to be always, how can we, criticize the state for it, not taking good care of us, and we criticize, we try to do more grants and so forth. And I guess my bottom line is I wish you all would consider accompanying the proposed tax increase with a modicum of expenditure cuts. And I think it would go a long way to helping the citizens swallow this bitter pill of a tax increase, to see a little more coupling of, coming together and solving the problem, as opposed to, oops, no, we can't talk about that. We can only talk about more revenue. So that's my say, and I hope you give it some thought as you vote this evening.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Hi, Terry Sutton, Piedmont District. I think my position on the food tax is pretty well known. 4% is what is generally accepted around our area for communities about the same size. 6% will absolutely hamper some of the growth. I think in the letter we actually stated a lot of the obvious things. Food prices, as you all know, have skyrocketed.
Yep.
Those affect us significantly. In Sperryville, we have a sewer that is outrageous. That is going. The rates are going to be doubling in 5 years. That is an impact on running a business. The tariff wars are going to cause absolute chaos. Like most everybody else, our employees need cost of living increases. And the fact that we've just had a contracting economy for the first quarter, the first thing that tends to go out of people's budgets is going out to eat and having a cup of coffee. By raising the tax rate 2%, 50% increase will absolutely impact the number of people who come into my place. And like Al, I take pride in the fact that I have a significant local base. I work hard to keep those prices where locals can afford them. I have lunch bunches, a group of guys, and the garden club, and all these people come into my place because it is an easy place to get together and to get together with friends and to do business meetings. So I do want to encourage you to not hamper our business, but I want to suggest an alternative approach. where we as restaurants and lodging can actually support what you're doing versus you hampering our businesses. And I want to say this right up front. I'm supportive of school funding. I'm the mentor to an 11-year-old who's in 6th grade who can't read. If you take away services from the school, it's only going to hurt his ability to have special attention. And so I'm a huge supporter of the schools because my mentee needs that support. But there's a way we can help you. Rather than finding ways to hamper our growth, I would encourage you to find ways to encourage the industry. There's lots of ways to do it. I went through the budget looking for things that could help grow it, and one of the biggest ones is tourism promotion. Bringing more people to Rappahannock County to bring them into our businesses, spend money, and leave is a great way to increase the revenue that you need to pay for the services. Because here's the thing, public services will never shrink. The world's not getting safer. You're going to need a new deputy someday. The schools are always going to be more expensive. You've got to get people's cost of living. And county employees deserve cost of living. So you're always going to have more need for revenue. The budget is structured to this point where it's just spending, where you don't have any investment. So a way to invest in the community and a way to invest in the food and beverage, which is a big part of the community, and hopefully a growing one, is to begin to actually get more aggressive in asking for tourism dollars. It's beginning to have people who go after state money for tourism activities. Sperry Fest, we pay for most of it our own. This year we got $4,500 from the county. But there's quite a bit of money sitting out there. There's a lot of infrastructure money too, but I can talk about that another day. I would also encourage you to begin to build a whole new industry out here. The wedding industry is an enormously profitable industry, and this place is beautiful. And the multiplier in weddings is significant. You have people paying for local photographers and caterers. They stay overnight. They go to restaurants. They hire local musicians. And you guys have always been hampered by the fact that there's noise created. There's a way to solve that problem. It's to just require local musicians with a decibel level. If you're coming out to Rappahannock County, you probably want local stuff anyway. You don't need your discos at 2 o'clock in the morning. That could significantly grow the amount of revenues you have that you can spend on other activities. So I want to suggest that we're part of this solution. Raising the taxes on us is not going to help solve that problem in the near term. It's a Band-Aid solution for your near term. It's a Band-Aid that will never be taken off again. I'll tell you just from the perspective of before and after, which by the way is now the second oldest restaurant in this county, shocking to me. Continually in the same space by the same owner. It's me, shocked by that fact. If this rate goes up, it is going to reduce the number of people I have coming into my business, and I'm going to have to make decisions. Is it worthwhile for me to stay open in January and February where I already lose money? How much money can I lose before I decide to not stay open? I stay open for two simple reasons. I want a place for locals to come, to be able to be together, and I stay open for my staff. I want to ensure that they have general revenue. I may have to decide whether staying open on Tuesdays, which is the slowest day of the week for me, is actually even workable anymore. So there are real implications that need to be addressed here. I do also want to mention Little Washington.
Mr. Sutton, your time's up.
Am I?
Yeah.
Then I'll just say I was disappointed in Little Washington's response. We can address that another day. But thank you for listening to me. I also want to thank Bonnie Jewell, who has responded to every one of my many requests at the same time she being responding to many other people. So thank you for all that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe I can pick up where Carrie left off. I'm Doug Walker. I'm in Piedmont District, and as you may know, I'm the co-owner and operator of Walker Bake Shop in Sperryville. Like Ms. Dore said, I think last week, in a sense, I'm looking for what's the big idea, what's the economic goal that we're after here to achieve with this proposed increase. I mean, I understand we're trying to raise revenue to address education and public safety, but what are the impacts of the kinds of kinds of changes we're talking about here? Over the weeks and years that I've lived here in the county, now getting close to 15, I've figured that the economic vision is something like we need something that will give us a sustainable revenue base so that we can continue to have what we have now. That we need to have the education and public safety taken care of, but we also need to protect retirees, and we'd like to be able to preserve the landscape. But it seems to me that proposals like this tax increase are going to undermine that. Simply put, well, actually paraphrasing Ronald Reagan, if you want to slow something down, tax it. If you want to slow down sales, that can be done by taxing it, and that will be the effective case. It doesn't take an awful lot of economics to understand that other counties will have more advantages, either in lower tax rates or more business support, and business will go there. And it's, as Carrie was about to point out, I think Little Washington is a good example. It's allowed under the county code to set its own tax rates. It's 2.5%. And the mayor last week told us he was actually quite happy that business was being pushed into Little Washington. Do we really want that outcome? Do we want all the food and lodging businesses to be in Little Washington? Does Little Washington want that? Do they want the disruptions of construction work and traffic? Is that what their desired outcome is? Do we want a lack of diversity and location to hinder some people from getting in and out? Not everybody who goes up into the park wants to stop through Little Washington. Some people just want to be able to pop up for a 5-minute break. And it also strikes me that this is something of a subsidy for the businesses in Little Washington. Do they actually need the subsidy, since many of them are well established by now? I can't imagine that anybody in this town is afraid of my little bakery. Why do they need protection from it with a tax subsidy? And is there, as Carrie had also pointed out, are there any plans to offset some of these impacts? I understand that this is a group decision, and that may be what you come down on. A 6% increase for food and lodging, okay, I'll live with it. It's my job to figure out how to do that. But is there business promotion that is going to be put together? Is there going to be a development official, somebody's designated as the point of contact to help promote business and tourism in the county? That would help a lot. I would also point out that it's a repeated refrain that I get that, well, this is just a pass-through. You don't actually pay it, Doug. You just pass it on to your customers. It is not a pass-through to my customers. It is not a pass-through to my employees. First of all, about half of my customers are all local. I can see my credit card receipts. I know where they're coming from. I recognize the faces. It's the retirees who come in on a Monday morning. That'll be my receipts for the entire day. Those will be the people that will be affected by this. And I'll also point out that my employees' tips are correlated to sales. Their salaries will also be affected by this. I agree with you, incremental. But that is the point of the tax, is to slow that down. And I would also point out that about half of my employees are retirees, now that I think of it. I'd ask that rather than just saying, all right, well, this is what the new tax rate is going to be, that there be some thought put into a coherent view of what we want, and then establish a tax scheme to try to achieve that. As it stands, what this proposed sales tax increase, just taken on its face value, it would seem to subsidize well-established businesses in Little Washington and inhibit the economic diversification that I think would make us more resilient in the long term, and would fail to capture revenue and instead put that burden on some of the people we purport to protect. That's really all I have to say, and I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Doug.
Yes, sir.
I'm Chris Parrish, the Stormville Hawthorne District. Appreciate what you all do. Sure you do. Know the feeling? So, as you know, your job is a balancing act between revenue and services. And before I go any further, I would like to point out that raw land does not create a necessity for services. And Fairfax County used to be a lot of farms, allowed in different places, they got taxed out. And all the farmers I know are lucky to break even. And so, that's enough of that. The open space is what attracts people into the county. And tourism is a big thing for this county more and more. I mean, I look at, for example, Costa Rica. I used to go down there years ago, and they got into ecotourism, and now they're rolling in it, and everything's fine. So I would also tend to agree that it's quite possible that the big increase of 4 to 6% is a pretty big percent for tax, and that increase could have some counterproductive implications in terms of tourism in general. Now, we're like the only county in the state that does not have any debt, and our tax rate, is really not bad compared to most places. I own probably 20 parcels of land in Rappahannock County, so I mean I'm hit as hard as anybody. But I'm resolved that that's the burden I pay for living here, and the benefit, that I get. And I rack my brain for other sources of revenue, and they're scarce. I mean, it is possible that when we're getting a lot of money from these new houses that are being built, and I know that when people, come in to get the building permit, they give a value, but that's probably way below what the real value is. And and we don't catch up with them until the next reassessment, which could be 5 years down the road. And so, if there was some way to actually assess the value of that property, when they move in, that could help. I'm not talking about hiring. I know Culpeper County has a full-time assessor. That's all he does. He's got a salary and all that. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm just saying that if we could close that gap, that could be a help. Also, our schools is like a private school. I mean, when our kids go to this county school, it's like going to a private school, and the teacher-student ratio is fantastic. And I know that some of the people that come in from out of the county, they pay tuition. I know some of them come from out of the county, they don't pay tuition, but what I would entertain is the possibility of actually advertising surrounding county. Culpeper County sucks, their school. A lot of parents would send their kids. We pay money to send their kids to Rappahannock. And if we advertise to accept kids from other counties and charge them tuition, that could possibly help, on the budget for that. So there's not a whole lot of ideas to help out, but in reality, we're in pretty good shape, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Chris.
Yes, sir.
Warren Wellstead, Wakefield District. Folks, we need people to
I'm
come.
sorry, I didn't catch you.
Wakefield District,
Your name?
Warren Wellstead. We need people to come and stay as opposed to coming in legally. Services aren't required from cattle. They also don't produce revenue by somebody trying to scam a house that's worth twice the value. We need people to come. We need clusters around some of these villages. This smells like a withering county to me. We're scrambling for a few bucks. We really are. I mean, this looks desperate when you're hoping for folks to grab money from wherever. You're asking for people to go and lobby. You're paying them when they're not gonna, it's not gonna happen. It's not. Schools, if they really wanted to have their children come here, they would be here. We need people to come and stay. That's all there is to it. You lose the schools, there's a stench and nobody's gonna come. Nobody's gonna stay. We've gotta open up some development. There's a cost to being what we are, which is agrarian in nature. Everybody is loving it, but it doesn't feed the bulldog. We've lost a jail. Come on down Courthouse Road. We're just going to continue to lose everything that we've got, and we're going to need to come up with some money. And I appreciate your work, but I do think that everybody needs to pay under this. It's going to be painful. Don't laugh, but I watch Bloomberg a couple hours a day, and it's probably going to slow down. And people are going to stop paying for what they don't really need to pay, period. So we need people to come, we need people to stay. And I think you need to loosen up and realize that you can't keep kicking the can down the road. So, thanks for listening.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey gang, Laurie Crochet Dore. Donna gets to deal with me. So I've been reading through the proposed KW. Yours is one I could actually sit down and sink my teeth in and feel like there's a minimal Band-Aid needed. DC1, DC2, and DD. I need you to take your Robin Hood off, because you are not Robin Hood stealing from the rich to give to the poor. And I say that with great respect. The concept that raising all these taxes are the short-term fix is wonderful. But if the cylinder, if that little battery and it keeps running dry, you can jump start it till the cows come home. Car's not gonna run. This is a sad attempt at jump starting something that's not gonna run. If the school is running short, they need to reevaluate their budget and do what we all do. So somebody in here needs to say, hey, besides my daughter, she doesn't count. But most folks, when your budget goes down and you go to mom and dad and say, hey, mom and dad, I need money, mom and dad says, well, congratulations, get a full-time job. Figure it out, right? We all have to budget and we all have to balance. Maybe the school board needs to do that. Maybe they need to start looking at how they're going to balance their own budget. Yes, my child went there, don't leave all that shenanigans behind. But what I'm going to say is we need to look at the fact that, like I said last week, we're becoming a retirement villa. And most folks have a budget on their retirement villa income. So what are we going to do? Are we going to keep taxing everything until my child will never be able to buy a house in this county? Much less my child being able to keep her restaurant open. And that's mine, Alan's mine, by the way, if y'all didn't know that. I can't imagine you wouldn't.
We made the connection.
You thought you saw that, didn't you? We look like twins. But I need the ATM machine of the Board of Supervisors to shut down.
Sounds good.
If the schools can't balance their budget, then maybe we as voters need to look at what we're doing there. We'll start there and we'll move forward. Next thing we need to look at is slicing and dicing. And somebody said, well, that's not easy. Well, I'll help you. I do it very well. That's what I did in corporate America for a very long time. They sliced and diced and nobody liked me. Didn't hurt my feelings. I got paid every Friday. Guess what? It's reality. Hard decisions and hard conversations are my specialty. And I'm real good at it. And here's the real truth, which is this. We're not an ATM. I have one ATM, and that's my 2-year-old grandson. I got grandma money, but I ain't got no BOS money, and I ain't got no school money. Y'all need to cut some budgets, and y'all need to look where the red needs to happen. We need to take off Robin Hood, because Robin Hood, he's a myth, he's a legend, but he's not real. And there's nobody here that wants to sit here and continuously get taxed in hopes. that that tax will work. How many people can you possibly get here? Let's be honest. How many people you get in the Rappahannock? Yeah, we got a lot. Yeah, get your grants. Don't stop doing it. Get those grants. Come on, let's do it. We're a year in to the new board. Where are they? So, my question is still, do your job. Cut the budget. And I like the KW because guess what? That one people can understand. Take it from the general fund. It's what we do. We do it in corporate America every day. And we go from there. So, y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I guess it's me. It's me again, Lord. I do want to let you all know it's very difficult when someone is standing up here facing for us back there to hear.
Name and district, and I really like to let the public do that.
Pardon me?
Speak
He
your
wants.
name and
Oh,
district.
Nancy Freeman, and I'm very proud to say that Christine Smith is my supervisor. And you let the public do what?
I
She
want to
doesn't-
let
she
you
doesn't
all
like it when I
speak your
introduce
name
people.
and
Oh,
district.
thank you. Please forgive me. So the first thing I want to do is apologize to all of you that I went overtime at the last meeting. That was my apology, Mr. Woodson. And I also want to piggyback on what she said.
Go girl.
I like your budget.
Thank you. I wish you could
As
vote.
opposed to, at what?
I said I wish you could vote.
I can't,
You
and I
can.
will. So, I am here again tonight to say that I am in opposition of this tax increase. And these are some of the reasons again. I think we need to consider not only the elderly and the middle class, but there are many of us in this county who are single households, and I'm one of them. Okay? I also believe that there needs to be a thorough check into each of the offices here to see where adjustments can be made. I'm not for anybody losing their jobs, but I worked in the office and I know that there's some adjustments that can be made. The other thing is this, I want you to know, if I had to choose between Rappahannock County Public Schools and every one of the counties that surround us, I would take Rappahannock County in a heartbeat. But I do believe that there are adjustments that can be made. Let me give you a small example. I don't know if they're still there or not. And my understanding is that the school money, school budget money, wasn't used to purchase them. Massage chairs in the elementary school. Why? My point in that is this. Couldn't that money have been directed to a more important purpose? That's all I got to say about that. I'm not opposed. I am not opposed to any student getting up speaking, but it is beyond my comprehension how a student who does not even live in this county can stand, and their families do not pay to go to school here, how they can stand up and speak to my supervisors in my county about what they would like to see done with the budget. I don't agree with that. Now, they were eloquent speakers, I'll give them that. But you have counties, you have divisions, and you have them for a reason. You know what? I've done lost my place. Lord have mercy, don't let me do that. So, in reality, in saying that, I say this. I'm not just paying for this, my county friends or people who have children in school. I'm not just paying for them. I'm paying for kids out of the county. And let me say this. Any teacher or employee here in the county that works in the county, that lives out of the county, I'm all for them bringing their children here and not having to pay. Thank God for that little small thing. But if they're coming here, the parents don't work here, then why am I paying for them to be here? All right, that's all I got to say about that. We talk about young people moving in. Let me tell you something. The kids leave this county because they cannot afford to live here. I have children that drive back and forth only because we had a piece of property for them to build on. They could not come back here, buy a piece of property and build a house. And most of the county kids can. Say what you want. Now, can I ask one question? Can I ask you all one question?
It's public comment. You can ask, we can't answer.
Oh, you can't answer.
No, ma'am.
You can't even answer me as to respond to how many people agreed to this budget increase that you know of. You can't respond to that?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
We are here to listen to you.
Okay, then I'll say this. I know for sure you have 300 signatures that oppose. Tell me how many you got that agree with it. I'm not talking about people just stand up here. You got it in writing, how many oppose. You're the representatives. You speak for the people. I encourage you to do that. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Come on, give me a clap. Come on.
All right, anyone else in the courtroom? Yes, ma'am.
Marlena Lee, Hampton District, and as always, I love Rappahannock County. I went across the United States to the West Coast in the last 3 weeks, and there's no place. I saw some amazing things, but there's no place like Rappahannock County. And I'm all for great schools. I'm all for great county offices. I'm all for all of that. But just like I have to cut my budget and I have to figure out how to buy groceries and my grandbaby snacks and all of those things, somebody has to be given an amount of money that is approachable to what they need, and that's what I'm given in my salary every month, every 2 weeks, whatever I'm paid, and my husband's salary, thank God. And we have to figure out how to make that work. I can't come up here and ask you for $10,000 more next year. Gary's not going to let me. I know he's not. And it's unfair that people get 10% budget increases, and I have to live with that, but I have to cut things out of my own budget at home. And I've lived here for 58 years, and I also don't think it's any more fair for you to keep increasing taxes and increasing taxes on me, any more than it is to increase taxes on a business in our county. I believe that if you want to have small growth, and we want to have small growth in Rappahannock, I hope we still want that we have to do things that keep growth small. And that may mean that we can't take 60 kids from another county and let them come to our school and get $50,000 worth of additional revenues for per pupil funds or whatever, but they're costing us as taxpayers $10,000 to $15,000 per student. That math doesn't add up to me. And I have questioned several times whether I should ask this question, but because we're always comparing ourselves to Fauquier and what Fauquier makes for this and what Fauquier makes for this, would any of you want to serve as a Board of Supervisors member in Fauquier County? Any of you? Because you'll get paid $20,000 there. And what do you get paid here? Not much. But would you actually serve there? So what I want you to do is apply those same thoughts to this budget and say, we're not Fauquier. We can't be Fauquier. There's no way to get there. Fauquier compares themselves to Loudon. And when Loudon ups their budget, then they up their budget. And so it's a cycle. It's just the way it is. We cannot compare ourselves to other counties. We're not them. So I'm going to ask also that we do the KW version of this budget. And then the next year, you all have to put into, and I'm willing to volunteer whatever I can do to help you, but you all have to put in the hard work of how to fund the schools more completely next year. And maybe the schools need to put in some hard work of how they can help fund themselves more. Whatever we need to do. We've got to ask those questions, but it's not fair to put that on the shoulders of the taxpayer. And I really appreciate all of y'all's service, but please, keep that Fauquier analogy. You can go to Fauquier and live. and get 20 grand to serve as a board of supervisor. But would you?
No.
Thank
not
you.
worth it.
Thank you.
The two we make is worth it.
I didn't consider it.
Anybody else in the courtroom?
George Lake Hampton District. I'm not for the tax increase because I got 5 months and 20 days to go and I'm gonna retire. So be easy on us. You know, think about what you're doing. I wanna get out, I wanna enjoy myself. And there's a lot of things that we can do. Like, I guess everybody has different things and everybody said everything really good. Like Chris said about the building the houses, what people's doing, not getting building permits, and a lot of things. I cut a lot of hay for different people, and I might be opening a bad can of worms here, but I think this land use thing needs to be policed a little bit better.
Yes, sir.
Because I'm cutting people's hay that's only got a couple acres, and they're in land use. Something ain't right here. I mean, we're losing money there, and there's a lot of things that we are losing money on that we need to open our eyes and look at here. And like everybody else said about the kids coming out of the county and going to the schoolhouses. I do have a problem with that because I'll tell you why. We go to a lot of games out here. Where's our grandkids sitting at? On the bench. While the Culpeper kids are playing ball out there. So we're paying money to go watch our kids sit on the bench. I mean, you know, there's got to be something done about that. I mean, that is a little ridiculous. And, you know, the school, like I said, everybody else said, the school needs to look at their budget a little better than what they're doing. Because I tell you what, I mean, I'm not saying nothing bad about the school system. I think it's great what they're doing, but I seen something the other day, the salaries that them teachers make up there, and that's, oh man, that's enough to knock you down. I think they could do a little bit better on salary-wise out there, cutting some salaries or, you know, doing something out there. They got to do something a little better than that to help us out with taxes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Thank you.
All right, we have quite a few people on Zoom. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the folks on Zoom. If you would please raise your Zoom hand if you'd like to speak. And give us your name and district. Obviously, your name's up there in most cases. I am not seeing any hands on Zoom. Okay, there we go.
Hello.
Hi, yes, please go ahead.
I know you guys are waiting for me. I guess one of the biggest things that I have learned through all of this
Name and district,
is-
please.
Oh, my name is Dawn Dyson, and I'm from the Piedmont District.
Thank you, ma'am.
First, I had also sent you an email. I think you did a outstanding job by putting, that saying goes, your mouth, or your money where your mouth is, by going to the end, and I'm super proud of you. As you guys all know, I'm a graduate of Rappahannock County. And I thought my school was great when I went to school. I thought there was less bullying. You know, we graduated county administrators, doctors, teachers, lawyers, great people for less. Less administration. We didn't have out-of-county students. And I know that the people there, if they're truly there because they are for the children, they'll see that cuts need to be made. You know, I personally, if you want to take 10% out of my paycheck to help, go ahead. If it means that this county can stay like it is as much as it can, everybody has to grow, but we were always taught, you know, you sacrifice when you live in a county like this. You sacrifice, you know, you're not gonna go to the store at Walmart at 3 a.m. and get you a snack. You're not gonna have food delivered. And also, your salaries, if you wanna make that money, then you've gotta go somewhere else. We've been told that all of our lives. So we sacrifice for that to be in a county that I pray, even after this budget, loves one another. When they see somebody on the road, they're gonna still wave. If they need help, they're gonna still help. That's my biggest prayer for us. Because none of this is, or at least on my part, is personal. It's just, I want to keep my county great, and I know that we can't do that if we keep taxing. You know, we're not bringing in the young people. And like I said, I think our schools are doing great, but they were great when I grew up too. I think it was an awesome school. You couldn't find better teachers that have now retired, but they stayed here because they loved the kids and they wanted to make a difference. And, you know, I will do whatever I can to try to do my part. So, thank you, and I hope you guys have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, Dawn. God, there's so many other- Anyone else on Zoom? All right, not seeing any hands on Zoom, I'll close public comment. And open this up to the board for the work session consideration.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
May I speak?
You may.
Thank you. First of all, I appreciate all the support for my 11th hour proposal. I think it's a sound proposal, and I'll explain as quickly as possible that of the 3 proposals that are before us, and I don't say this disrespectfully or to cause problems for my colleagues, but I think it's the only one of the 3 that we can adopt tonight for 2 reasons. The first reason is that the other 2 proposals before us both contemplate a increase from 4 to 6% on the county meals and lodging tax rate. Mr. Carney threw our budget schedule a bit into chaos and crunched our timeline, and we're in an awkward position where if one of the other 2 proposals is adopted, it would be adopted on the basis of an increase in the meals and lodging tax rate to 6%. But through an oddity of timing, we haven't even had a public hearing about that. And obviously there are meaningful comments tonight that hit on that proposed increase. And so obviously those comments are well taken, and I trust we all will consider them. But good government, as I've been taught in 6 years, not knowing anything about local government before, requires public hearings. Well, not good government, legal government requires public hearings for ordinance changes. And we haven't had that public hearing yet. And so whether it's legal or not, I think it's in bad taste. And I'm not trying to throw a monkey wrench into our deliberations. I'm not trying to direct anyone to my proposal on that basis. If we proceed with one of those other 2 proposals, I trust that Mr. Curry, Ms. Jewell, the county attorney, will ensure that moving forward on one of those 2 proposals, in fact, is legal. I'm not a lawyer, but it doesn't feel right to me, if nothing else. There was a lot of discussion tonight about revenue and expenses. And my constituent, Mr. Knight, who knows his way around a financial statement, I know that, made some very good points to me before the meeting and again during his comments. And I wanted to talk about revenue, and I also want to talk about expenses, and finally I want to talk about my recent civil, calm, reasonable, logical outreach to the town of Washington. On the revenue side, if you look at the last 6 years, our real property tax rate hasn't increased. It has not. And what we hear from the schools and we hear from citizens is that everything's getting more expensive, but yet we haven't increased our tax rate in 6 years. How's that possible if everything is getting more expensive? The mayor the other night said that due to poor planning, in an 11th hour politics of distraction move, I contacted the town and asked them to consider a revenue sharing arrangement through which they would level the playing field at a 4% tax rate that matched the rest of the county. I'll use another D word. It was an act of deflection, because I think the question was a good one that he didn't answer, and in fact told his town council they would not consider. So the next thing he said really bothered me, because it's disrespectful to Ms. Jewell and Mr. Curry and all my colleagues and my colleagues immediately before us. He said due to poor planning, and that I'm an architect of that poor planning. So I want to talk about what poor planning looks like. Poor planning looks like an $8 million cash cushion in our general fund. Poor planning looks like no tax increase in the last 6 years. Think about that. Poor planning looks like no county debt. That's poor planning? I'd say the opposite and then some. I might even take some credit for it, but everyone should take credit for it. And while all of that was going on, in the background, Mr. Curry, a professional engineer by background, got us out of a bad contract in the refuse and recycling centers. We're saving $250,000 at least a year of your money, which is $1.50 on the tax rate, because of his good work and our decision. In addition, Mr. Curry has revamped what's called a leachate pond at the Amosville landfill. Again, significant savings. So and I mentioned this to Mr. Knight, there are many examples where our board, through good guidance from our excellent county administrator, has made really good decisions that have reduced our expenses, that have obviated the need for us to chase additional revenue, and allowed us to keep property tax rates level during a period of increasing costs. And so that's where I come from when I look at the school budget. Because on the county side, and this is not criticism of Shannon or her team, it's just the logical way this non-politician tries to connect the dots and add the numbers up. We're doing our best on the county side to keep open space, keep this place beautiful. We need to do a better job in promoting businesses. I think we're very passive in that regard. There's a lot we can do better, no doubt. But we all love Rappahannock County the way it is. Marlena Lee loves Rappahannock County for a reason. And I saw all her Facebook pictures. She was in the Redwoods. She was in the Grand Canyon. She touched the Pacific Ocean, and she came back to Rappahannock County. We love it the way it is. I think we have, to some extent, a steady state economy, and that's what I'm trying to hold on to. We can keep this place relatively affordable, and I know there are arguments about affordable housing, and that's for another day, and we'll try to figure that out. But we can do this. We can keep Rappahannock County the way it is with incremental adjustments here and there, and supporting incremental increase in business activity over time that doesn't dramatically change the county. And that's my vision, and that's what I've been trying to do the last 6 years. So I'm going to go ahead and put forward a motion that we adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year budget beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026. And this is a scenario labeled KW. And under this scenario, to be clear, we would be adding a penny to the real estate tax rate. And I want to explain quickly what that is. That is basically the re-addition of a penny that our board decided to take off of the tax rate after our last equalization exercise. If I'm not mistaken, we were in the pandemic, and it seemed, given our cash position, it was a prudent thing to do. So call that some relief for a while, and I'm calling for bringing that penny back into play to meet our shortfall. In addition, I would, under my scenario, have proposed to use $250,000 of our general fund balance. Not an ideal scenario, but it's what I determined was a prudent way forward. And in doing that, the total transfer to the school, including the buses that have already been agreed to be paid for, would total $737,857. So my motion is adopt the resolution on that budget proposal, and hope that we can pass it as a majority, not unanimously. Thank you.
I would second that, and then we can discuss.
Yep. We have a motion and a second discussion.
I just wanted to double check that resulting increase to the schools is what I think was initially recommended to us by staff. Isn't that correct?
It's
It was slightly higher.
It's close.
It's $17,000 higher.
Yeah, it was 421 to
I
437.
think that's a good compromise to my mind. This does a few of the most critical things. It ensures the raises for staff because we funded the buses with different monies, which to my mind we needed to do to ensure those buses were purchased. That freed up about $120,000 of operational dollars that can be redirected, and that plus the $17,000 is almost enough to cover the concerns over the insurance increase. So those are really good points that we were able to bump that up a little bit more. And that also is a zero increase on the fire levy fund, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So it takes us to 1 on real estate, no meals and lodging tax, no fire levy fund increase, and basically taking the staff's recommendation
Plus a little.
for the school transfer.
Yep.
Well, I know that there are people who will still look askance if I vote for any kind of real estate increase. But as I said the other night, in the spirit of compromise, if I can get from 4 pennies down to 1 penny, I think I have to take that deal. And I think people would want me to take that deal. And that I was looking out for their best interest if I did that. I think sometimes a feeling comes over a county or a community that's almost like a fever. And this year, this Fund the Schools Fully Cry has kind of been like a fever. It feels like a fever.
Yeah.
That's taken over the county, and it's burned hot and high. And it's been a tough year for me to sit through these discussions because Keir probably remembers when we sat down, he was like, why are you running for the board? What do you want to do? And I said, it feels like in this county we spend so much of our time moving in an unproductive direction.
Yeah.
Whereas if we could just sit down and work together, we could make a lot more progress and figure things out so much more productively. And this year I feel like we spent a lot of time in meetings, but very little time actually trying to work things out other than maybe pull this lever, maybe pull that lever. I'm always willing to sit down and pour over the numbers and try to find expenses we can cut. I know that's That's tough business and nobody likes to do it. But when I was in school, we put paper covers over our books, and every year the savings and loan had a little flying piggy bank that your dollars were slipping away, and it said, take care of your pennies and your dollars will take care of themselves. And we're a small county, and every dollar counts, and I still feel that way. I did just want to say a few things about the comments that we heard tonight, and thank everyone so much for coming out. I know Carrie reached out early about the meals and lodging tax, and I know everyone wanted to hear that I did not support it. And I said, I can't say that, because if I say that, no one will show up for the meeting. And that's the most important part, is that people come out for the meeting. And your time is valuable, you work hard. Thank you for coming out. It is the best way to get through to your local elected officials, and I so appreciate your coming to see us tonight. When we ate in your restaurant last Friday night, Dory, everything was so good.
It's awesome.
And I said, my husband is a Georgia boy, and it's the dream of his life to be able to go eat catfish on a Friday night. And you have made his dreams come true. And it's good, it's delicious. So I don't think he would mind me saying that. For the town of Washington, I think that maybe we just need to have a heart-to-heart with the town, quietly. And I know when Mayor Catlin originally talked about the workforce housing that evolved into the Rush River project, he was very passionate about bringing families back into the town. And I would hope that in their wisdom, they would see that part of having families in the town is having skin in the game. But that's a conversation from the heart, I think, and we can take a fresh approach. I would say for assessments, we do have reassessments coming up in a few years, and that ties into the broadband project also. The broadband project, one of a few things will happen in the next couple of years. Either we'll get broadband, or we won't get broadband and we'll get some money back. So if we don't get broadband and get our money back, that gives us a few options plus interest for how to spend it. If we do get broadband, every house to which broadband is delivered will then be reassessed probably at 5 to 10% higher than they were before, because part of the reassessment process is what services are available to that address. So that is coming. That is a number we can look for in the future. I said the other evening, and I'll just say it again, I know the schools are trying to meet every student's wishes, and I think that there are a lot of great programs that encourage people into gainful and fruitful employment as they become young adults. And I come from a family that is very involved in the arts, and probably one of the few people in the room that can say I had someone in my family that made a living as a fine artist and commercial artist. But I have a hard time looking families in the eye and tell them that we are building out an arts academy with their tax dollars. I think it's not the time to do that. I think there's ways to engage organizations like RAC or other organizations. We have such vibrant volunteer opportunities, and I don't think we should engage tax dollars to that end. There's tough choices to make, and maybe I'm a bad guy for saying it, but in the world of priorities, that is not a high priority for most working families. For Fauquier has a planning staff of 20 on their planning staff. So when you ask about do we want to be Fauquier, remember that they pay for a planning staff of 20. And so the answer for me right off is absolutely not.
You do know we're under a a vote and a motion and a second.
I thought that we were under discussion.
We are under discussion. I
I
just
was
want
trying
make
to
sure.
respond to points of public comment.
Okay.
Is there a time limit for board members that I should be aware
There
of?
is not. I'm trying to make sure you just knew we were still.
Yes,
You
I
did.
understand how the meeting works.
You did make a second though.
I did, well, for purposes of discussion, and we're discussing. I'm still in favor of adding a line onto tax bills, and pointing out to people how much they realize in savings in having their land in land use. Because it is an opportunity for them to say, hey, this is a great deal for me, and I'd like to give a little more. And I know that staff will shudder and say, those are not dependable dollars, and we can't be using those for things. But we can use them for one-time expenses. We can use them for one-time expenses. And until we ask, we don't know what we're going to get. And we have a lot of one-time expenses coming. As the board's representative to the Planning Commission, I hear what people are saying about growth and opportunities. From the perspective of being on the Planning Commission, there's only so much we can do to affect those things. There's certain factors. The fertility of childbearing aged females is one of the factors that contributes to your future growth indexes. There's just not a lot of things that you can actually control. And most of the applications that we receive, we approve. I would bet we approve 4 or 5 out of 5 or 6 applications.
Yeah.
Our denial rate is very low. So it isn't like we're getting this huge influx of requests that we're denying. I just wanted to thank the wisdom of boards of supervisors that preceded us. I think Mr. Carney brought up the other night the middle school. At one point in this county, there was a call for a middle school. And that board of supervisors had the foresight and wisdom to know that that was beyond our means as a county, and that we were not in a position to be able to support funding a middle school. And it's not great to say no. It doesn't feel good not to give everyone what they want. But these are tough decisions, and we have to think of what's best for everyone. And that's why I support Mr. Whitson's option for the budget this year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. Debbie used to own a business. I'm a business owner who barely makes it with my brothers. I am in law school, so hopefully the future holds a larger revenue for myself. I did not originally want to advertise an increase in meals and lodging because it is not really a pass-through, it's discretionary spending.
I didn't understand.
Oh, it's discretionary spending, so with a good like us, I run a brewery with my brothers or you guys, when times get tight, people just go out less. And that tax can get passed through, but if people go out less, what is the offset? So it gets, it was not something that I wanted to support, and I brought this up last night, but Mr. Whitson wanted to re-advertise it, and we'd been going through different scenarios. And I wanted to ask Dr. Grimsley here, there's a bunch of scenarios that we've put out here. Do any of these scenarios help to get the special ed teacher?
Well,
Is there enough money? What's in the budget for the school is a special ed teacher, a math teacher, and a reading specialist.
so really the work session of the school board is going to have next week. It's
You'll
going to
figure that out.
determine what exactly they're going to need to do with whatever bottom line. I can't say, of course, more money toward the positions, because I know my board has a priority for the raises and the health insurance to protect that for employees. Those are their 2 main things. Everything else will come after that. The special ed teacher we have to do for compliance. So, but if there's cuts,
You've got to do the special ed teacher.
we have to do that, whether it's in addition to the budget or if it's moving around some things. It depends on who's leaving, who we hire, what's available in those vacancy
differentials, so it really, there's a lot we don't know at that point.
Right, and I do have a critical question here. In our discussions before, I mean, I could be totally wrong here, but I feel like you have suggested that the out-of-county students do not cost us money, but that they help our LCI. Is that true or not true?
It is true, yes.
I can't hear you.
So the out-of-county students don't cost us money, but they add to our LCI, which helps. We want our ADM, our average daily membership, to go up. So I'm just asking, Dr. Grimsley.
It is one of those.
This isn't an answer, and sorry, it's just
It's
I
okay.
can ask.
Can we ask numbers?
No. This is I'm sorry, Marlene. It's just as a supervisor, I'm just asking Dr.
So when this was considered, there was some back and forth between this board at the time, it was quite a while ago, and the school board. And all that was changed with the tuition policy, because we weren't getting any, they weren't paying to come, was could we expand it to county employees or those that meet waiver requirements? Do they own land? Do they work in the county 30 hours or more? Do they provide a public service for the county? If they meet certain criteria, for which they have to apply every year, there has to be room in that grade level, there has to be an empty seat, and they have to meet criteria. And those are fixed costs. So no, it wasn't an added expense from that side of things operationally. It was more receiving state funding by stabilizing our ADM, because that's what we were really worried about, and that's what came out of SIFT, was if we stabilize or increase ADM, we have a shot at maybe lowering our LCI and then getting a lot more dollars long term through that.
So I've always been under the impression that the out-of-county students, they do not cost us money, but they just, it's an even playing field. Well, I don't think it's about, maybe I'm just asking Dr. Grimsley these questions. Whether she's telling the truth or whether there's data behind that I don't know, it's just a question I'm asking her now. You and I have talked about this before. I think it's relatively a small amount of children compared to the amount of children we have total. Do you know the average? How many out-of-county students we have?
We have 60.
About 1 in every 10 students is out-of-county students.
We have 60.
And they do account for the ADM, but it has not affected our LCI.
Right, it has not affected our
Not until
LCI.
the re-benchmarking. After re-benchmarking, a new ADM, after every 2 years in the new biennium, then it calculates. So you want to spend time trying to get that up. So over time, it's more revenue. And it is a debatable thing. I understand that. That's something we talked through in the school board, made the decision. It's a school board policy decision by statute that they can decide how that works. Some counties don't have any non-resident, other than you apply. If you're in good standing, you can go. So it just kind of depends on the policy that the school board adopted. They did it in the spirit of bringing in additional revenue without adding significantly to cost, and that was the spirit of that.
Right. So just to let everybody know where I am coming from, I made a motion to re-advertise the tax rate so that we could get people talking, and that's what we have done. None of these scenarios have ever gotten to fully funding the schools. It's not going to happen. Not even the biggest tax increase would not have fully funded the school. It's not going to happen. I have a lot of people asking me to get rid of land use.
Absolutely.
I'm going to be gone, and I would never.
Now, when I spoke about that, I didn't mean to
No,
get rid of it.
not you, George. Not you, George. I have other people.
Okay.
Not you. Not
Okay.
you. Not you.
I just don't
Nobody in
think
this room.
anybody
Nobody in this room. I have people calling me, asking me to get rid of land use, and I tell them, I'm sorry, but I cannot do that. I cannot kick the kids I went to school with off their farms, and I know that. You got to find another guy. I'm not running again. Get somebody else to do that. But that land use discussion, I was committed to having it, and that is where it is. I think we're all in this room because we live in Rappahannock County. We can do things. We can do things that make us look like Culpeper County. We can do things that make us look like Warren County. And in 1986, the supervisors at that time, whether it was a good idea or not, decided that they didn't want my end of the county, which is getting closer to Boston, to look like Culpeper. There are several levers we can pull as supervisors to pull in money, and they're just called taxes. We can do a business licensure in Rappahannock that the county has looked at before, and it was decided that it would cost as much, if not more, to administrate it than to implement it. The other bad thing about that business license is that it won't touch farm wineries. I have been trying to figure out how I can pay more tax. I own a winery and a brewery, and I've been trying to figure out how I can. I paid 3 years of food and lodging before I realized we didn't have to pay it. We paid $9,000, and I was like, can I get it back? and I just paid it because I thought I was supposed to. There's another one called machinery and tools. You want machinery and tools? I bet a lot of people in this county do not want machinery and tools. Well, I can tell you right now, it doesn't touch farm wineries. They have a very strong lobby in Richmond. Those are 2 basic taxes that every county around us does. We don't do it. And guess what? People from Culpeper are parking their vehicles and their tools in Rappahannock to get out of other taxes. So we have created a little bit of a tax haven here. Just call the Commissioner of Revenue and just ask her. I don't know what to do. I want to get a special ed teacher, I want to get a math teacher, and I want to get a reading specialist. There are children in this school that are behind. It's not going to happen because people, and I get it, I am one of them. My median household income is way below the county's average and has been my entire life. That's where I am. I don't need to get into details about exactly how much I make, but it's very little. I feel it. I want to get a reading specialist, I want to get a math teacher, and I want to get a special ed teacher. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. The governor, since 2022, has done a 5%, 5%, 5%, 3%, and 3% salary increase across the entire state. Let me just break this down for you guys. We have an LCI that says the state gives us barely any money for those raises. Fauquier, Culpeper, Luray, Page, Rockingham, these counties get like 80%. So what they've done is they've taken that 5% raise and said, oh, you know what we're going to give our employees? We're going to give them 6 or 7%. It's just what's happened. We had 14% of our teachers leave last year. 83% of this budget goes towards instructional staff. 83%. So what we're fighting, sorry, Ms. Smith made this point last night. We're not fighting. We're discussing. And I believe that. We are discussing. We're basically where our really good county staff told us to go. These scenarios are pretty close to that. And our county administrator, our assistant county administrator, and everybody in Dr. Grimsley's office, they are professionals who do a fantastic job, who could always do a better job, just like I could always do a better job. But I am getting so many calls that are filled with so much misinformation, and I said this last night, that what we're doing here tonight is political. What I'm talking to you about right now is political. The numbers don't line up. We're not going to pay for it. We're not going to pay for it. It's not that our school didn't used to be, that it's not awesome anymore, that it was awesome. I mean, Donna's right. It's that the Virginia government, the state government, has a plan to make us more competitive. You can go read the governor's statements on this. What they're doing is they're forcing localities to pay their teachers more, and guess what? How many sources of revenue do we have? We have one, and it's your property. That's it. So we're at a crossroads. I really think that. I wanted to get as close as we could to getting a special ed teacher. There are people in this county that are way worse off than I am. Most people don't know. They drive in and they come to my brewery and they're like, man, there's so many wealthy people I'm here. Just go over Red Oak Mountain. Just go on the back. Most of my constituents they're hardworking people who are living paycheck to paycheck. Terry Dixon made a point the other night, and he's right, that when you do reassessments, you have pockets of inequality, and you have these pockets that are going to get hit. And I know that. So a 2-penny tax increase, I've never raised taxes on the board, not once, not anywhere. In my time in county government, I've never raised taxes. So that's what we're talking about here right now. And this is minimal. And I know you can't really say that and win anywhere. But whether it's a penny or 2, look at the other counties. Just look at the other counties and what they've done every year. And we've done a fantastic job at keeping our debt at now 0 and where we are. And the biggest driver of our cost is the school. That's just a fact. So, as we move forward, and as we try to figure this out, I said something the other night, which I firmly believe, and I think that we need to do, which is that, and it's going to be wildly unpopular, but I think that we have to develop some commercial spots in the county. I just don't know how else to do it. I am not for chopping up the county. I think it's a terrible idea. I think some people would love to do that, and I think some people would hate to do that. But I do think that there's a benefit to having some commercial spaces in highway areas, especially around villages. Now that's a whole different discussion. But right now, I have a lot of my constituents calling me saying, I try to do business in the county and I can't. And these are folks that are from here and they grew up here and they're just trying to find something to do. And they're having a really difficult time. The reality is that it's expensive to buy a house anywhere around here. It's especially expensive in Rappahannock because we have an artificially low amount of houses. That's how we've done it. We have an artificially low amount of houses. We don't have that many. We have 3,200 dwelling units here. And if you look at the ratio of how many people live in the house per dwelling unit, the ratio is the same. So if you go to Culpeper, they just have a lot more houses. Anyway, this is a long way of saying, I'm trying to get 3 teachers for the school. That's all I've ever been trying to do, and that's unpopular. And I get it. I 100% get it. And we're not going to get them. And the massage chairs were never paid with county money. They were paid. The massage chairs were paid for with a grant. And there's lots of other grants that come into the school. People ask me all the time. People ask me all the time about where certain tranches of money come from. A lot of it comes from individual grants. Some can come from PTO. But I can tell you what we haven't touched are 2 buses that we're still behind on and a leaking roof that everybody maybe knows about at this point, leaks on the teacher. And we haven't figured out how to even do that. And we haven't, if we can do this, which we're not going to be able to, is even get these teachers. So I try to tell my constituents that I have overwhelming support for the schools when they understand that most of that money goes towards instructional staff. And the sticker shock is real. It's just real. And I don't know what to do because I can't go to the grocery store without spending hundreds of dollars for my family for fun. I just can't do it. So.
Well, I'm going to start like I have the last 2 meetings. I never know exactly where to start. So I think for me, the best thing to do is to remind everyone how we got here tonight. And that was our county professionals, whom many people at the last couple of meetings and even at this meeting tonight have commended them on their work and how good and precise it is. They put out a recommended budget. It was a recommended budget. It is what they thought was good for our county moving forward. We had a public hearing, and this courtroom was packed, much like it is tonight, and everyone stood up and said, no, we don't like that budget. We want you to fully fund the school. We want you to give the school every single dime they ask for. And after some discussion, Mr. Carney did what I'm now calling threw a firebomb and said, okay, well, let's re-advertise the budget, and we're gonna increase taxes 3 pennies, 1 penny, the cigarette tax, I think meals and lodging to it all, like, it was the firebomb. So we advertised that for 2 weeks in a row. And then we had another public hearing, which many of you attended last Thursday. And thank you very much. I'll get to my thank yous in a second. And we heard from, what was the count, Bonnie? 75 people?
I think 75 people were in attendance.
Yes, in attendance, yeah.
Spoke.
Mm-hmm. We heard from a lot of people. And I would say generally it was 50-50, and I'm stripping out all the children, stripping them out. It was about 50-50. The surveys that everyone, I wrote them down. The surveys that everyone sent out, I think one was 400, one was 300. I personally found flaws with both of the surveys. Just to let you know, I looked at them and they were both flawed. So then, now here we are. We were here Monday and had, let's back up. Thursday, because I said this last night. Thursday, what I heard from everybody was not, oh, please raise taxes. It was not, oh, we hate kids, we don't care about the school. It was, some of them, please, I'm happy to pay a little bit more for our schools to have more. Some of them begged us to consider other people in our county. What every single person said, though, the common thread throughout the whole night was, if nothing changes, nothing changes. We have had this conversation. I think one person said 25 years. Somebody else said, 15 years. Everyone, the common thread was, we're doing the same thing and we're expecting different results. The other thing I heard between Thursday and Monday was, again, I heard the first 3 things I mentioned, and again I heard there's no accountability. There's no accountability. So Thursday night, and I'm sorry for those of you who came here on Monday and heard it Monday, I'm going to repeat it. Thursday night, I went home. And I know some people cringe when I say this, but it's the truth and it's facts. I'm the junior member on this board. And I went home Thursday night and thought, what do I do? There are 28% of our residents in Rappahannock County are what's called ALICE, Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. We have about somewhere between 17 and 20% of this Rappahannock's population are under the age of 18. So we've got to serve them. 11% are 74 and older. So we have to keep them in mind. And then I've mentioned Monday, maybe Thursday, I can't remember now, the diminishing middle class. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. So I went home and I thought, the next day I, called Bonnie, will you see me? Yes, I'll see you. And I said to her exactly, let's play with this. Where can we get in the middle? Where can we get a little bit closer for the school, but we don't hurt everybody else? So I think, Bonnie, I was in there, 2 hours, 2.5, on a Friday afternoon. She was a good sport. And we came up with UC, which is now called, we laughed about it on Monday, DC1 and DC2. So, because I'm playing around with all this stuff. I'm going to say it again. I don't want to raise taxes. I don't like paying taxes. But I do want the school to have a special ed teacher. I want it to have a roof. I do want our restaurants to thrive. I love them all. I do want, I just came from, before this meeting, I came from the Parks and Rec meeting, and that is an incredible group. If you're not familiar with our Parks and Rec committee, you really need to meet some of those people. But one of the guys said, we were just yik-yakking. He said, yeah, Rappahannock is green and serene. And I thought, I wrote it down. I was like, I like it. Green and serene. And I want to keep Rappahannock green and serene. But if you draw all of those circles out and you find that spot in the middle, that spot in the middle is really small. It's really small, and it's hard to hit. It's hard to hit. Everyone mentioned cutting budgets and scrubbing budgets. I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. I found a couple of things in our budget that I wondered about. I thought, what is this? Well, then when you start digging, the state requires it. Or you got to give them a 2-year notice before you can pull out of it. Or if you don't have that, you need this. I made a little asterisk on all of those on the budget, and I have a running list I've shared with a few people that I have as a supervisor, things you learn in year 1, things you learn in year 2. So under my things I've learned in year 2, there are all these asterisks. Like, do we need? Would something work better? What has to happen here? But I will say, I've said it to a few constituents, and I'll say it again tonight. I couldn't fix that in 14 days. From the day the firebomb was thrown until now. But I appreciate that firebomb because it really made me, I have been digging. So I just point out that between the day that the first budget was presented and tonight, nobody has recommended what to cut other than the school. No, because you know what? It's the biggest and it's probably the easiest, right? So there have been no real recommended cuts that I have seen. And I hear nothing's changed in 25 years. I hear others have worked hard to do X, Y, and Z. But look where we're sitting. One way in, one way out. Here we are, we need a new courthouse. Our county buildings, who was it? Marlena mentioned, working in a basement. Cold, damp basement.
I'm not allowed to talk back, I'm sorry.
You are absolutely correct. That sort of thing.
I'm not liking what I'm hearing, so I don't want to talk back.
I'm sorry, what? Okay. So, I think, gosh, if we have to do something a little different. So again, in the thing I proposed, I thought, okay, the meals and lodging, that's going to be tough. What can we do to maybe offset that? What can we do to help? If they don't know to come here, they won't come here. So that's why I was privy to some VTC grants, and that's when I thought, oh, well, can we grow our money? Can we grow our money and then help bring people in the county? Is it a great big solution? No. It's not a great big solution. Is it a step in the right direction? I personally think it is. I also think it's a step anyway. It's something a little bit different. And I think, the spirit, like I said, the spirit of my DC2, again, was to kind of reach somewhere in the middle. Now, also in the spirit of hearing other ideas and listening to everyone talk, because that's what it's all about, is putting something on the table and talking about it. So I'm not married to well, we don't even talk about the little DC1. I'm not married to DC2. I'm open to the other proposals on the table, but I do want, like I said, my aim is to get somewhere in the middle. The last thing I want to say is the one thing that is really good about what Mr. Carney did was it did bring people out. I have really enjoyed even the tough conversations. I've really appreciated them. Out of every single conversation, pleasant, tough, uncomfortable, whatever that conversation has been, I've taken a nugget out of that. And I hope to turn that into something that I can work with and move forward with. Because again, what I heard Thursday night was we need a little bit of change, we need some accountability, we need some forward thinking, and regardless of what is voted on tonight, I can tell you, I'm ready to do that. I have an appointment with the Commissioner of Revenue tomorrow at 11:30. I have an appointment with Headwaters tomorrow at 1:30. I have an appointment with the schools next Friday at, I can't remember that time, but it's in my calendar. And, you know, that's where I am tonight, and that's what I want folks to know. So, yeah, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. I feel like so much of this is repeat, so I'm going to try my best not to repeat a lot.
Thanks, by the way, for your incredible patience listening to all of that. Van covered like the world history in 15 minutes. You guys did a really good job, but thanks for listening to all of this.
Then it'll be the last time you all get to hear me give a budget speech.
Those were great.
Thanks for letting me get it all in.
Well, I think it's okay. I mean, everybody needs to talk. It's okay.
I was going to say, I don't think I talked belabored.
No, I'm not saying that. We all did.
If we timed everybody,
we all did. And I'm thanking her because she's last.
I talked a lot. All right, I'm going to go now. First of all, I just want to thank everybody, and I hope it's clear how much we all love Rappahannock, and I think I can speak for all of us that we all love Rappahannock as well. I've been here 25 years and had a business for 20 years. There was a restaurant, and I was on the state association, the Virginia Restaurant Lodging and Travel Association, for 1 year more than I had the restaurant, because I knew I didn't know the restaurant industry and I was going to need help. And I did fight food and lodging increases with the state association for probably 22 years. And I said that the other day. So when I speak an increase, it's knowing what I'm saying, knowing what the potential impact is. And that's why when Ms. Comer suggested the 10,000 that could hopefully become 30,000 with the VTC grant, I thought at least we are trying, we're not just putting the pressure and the issue on the business, we're actually saying we recognize that we need to bring in more business. And something most people probably don't know, when John McCarthy was here, there was a group that he started called the Tourism Advisory Group, or TAG for short, and I was on it, and that was a very long time ago. And that process led to businesses of Rappahannock. It led to the hiring of a woman named Laura Overstreet, who the county paid to actually do tourism and bring business into the county, and I think she was successful. I still can't remember how that fell apart, but it is, I believe at that time, it made much more sense for one centralized area to be spending money on advertising for businesses in the county than each individual business spending their own money doing this, or trying to do the same thing. But my ad's this big because that's all I can afford, and the county ad was this big because it was all of us together. So that's my food and lodging world. I don't know that everyone knows that when we received the budget from Ms. Jewell at the very beginning, she has already scrubbed it. she goes around, and if I'm misspeaking, please let me know. She meets with every constitutional officer, I mean, everyone, and looks at what their budget ask is, what they asked the previous year, what the trends are, what's happening. She scrubs it before we get it. And I can tell you, she doesn't say yes to everybody. And some people get maybe a little bit more because she found something that they forgot. But when we get it, we start scrubbing it as well and spend tons of time doing that and have meetings with citizens, some business leaders. The school, I met with Dr. Grimsley and Stacy, and I went to their line-by-line budget meeting. It's not like my head's in the sand. I can honestly say I'm doing my best as a previous business owner to make sure we're not wasting money. And I feel like I've worked hard to do that. The one thing that came out of the school meetings that does concern me is we do have capital expenses coming. The roof will probably have to be fixed somehow before we can talk capital expenses. And then the discussion about the entire roof replacement, I believe, on the elementary school. HVAC, everybody knows we have issues with. There's some pretty major capital expenses that my eyes are wide open. I know we've got a lot coming down the pike, and the courthouse is just around the corner. I did meet, because of my appointment with the Hunt Institute, I did meet with Lisa Payne-Wells of CCLC, because the first part is pre-K, so I met with her and found out that there are 155 students, kids, pre-K, in CCLC right now, and that gives me hope. I have to say, when I found that out, I was like, okay, so how many of them are Rappahannock children? And it was 70%. So I'm like, that does mean things are hopefully going to head in the right direction, and we are going to see more kids in our school. The one thing I learned from the Hunt Institute is the school systems seem to be shifting where they have so recognized that the young folks under 5 are learning so rapidly that they really need to have more elementary school, pre-K level, not just childcare. And so the shift, and I don't have a clue how long this will take, but the shift's going to happen where younger pre-K are going to end up in the schools pre-K. And then the seniors, which my next session is K through 12, seem to be linking more with like two-year colleges, Laurel Ridge, or other colleges that they're really pushing the seniors almost into college. As you know, these AP classes and everything, kids coming out of high school with an associate's degree is just amazing. So more of that is going to be happening. But that, I just wanted to make sure that we know that we have looked at everything really closely. When we decided as a board to approve the 2 buses, one of which was being paid for by a one-time tax revenue that we experienced, and then the other one we voted as a board to pay for out of the general fund. That was because we were told they were behind 4 buses, and you just can't, can't let school kids on a bad bus. So we voted. We did that in April, I believe, and because of that vote, we allowed, I think Bonnie worked with Stacy, and they went ahead and ordered the buses because I think that's 6 months wait time or something crazy. And at that time when we did vote for those buses, we did not tie that in any way to the school's budget. We said, we understand you need the buses. We know we've got to take care of our kids. We're going to go ahead and order the buses. So with this initiative that Mr. Whitson has put forward, it includes the buses that we already took care of in April. And my personal opinion is it should not be included in that. If the schools had known that we were going to lump that into or really take it out of the budget, basically, they would have chosen to wait until they knew what the school board would have waited, until they knew what the budget was going to be all total to make sure that they could do what they needed to do to take care of the kids. And then there was fire levy. I am confused at this one because Mr. Witchen is the chair of the Public Safety Committee. He and I get to talk to a lot of people about the need for fire and rescue and what we're dealing with in the county. And I really appreciate the fact that we have a fund that is specific to public safety, fire and rescue. You guys, as citizens, know that that money is going to that account. It's not going anywhere else. And when you call 911, you should feel pretty darn confident that somebody's coming. And everybody knows the prices for paid people, paramedics, is going up. The prices for equipment, which it doesn't cover because the stations have that capital expense. But now we have drug needs for the paramedics and the advanced EMTs have the meds on their ambulance so they can give them to you when they get to the house. The state stopped covering all of that. We used to be able to go into the hospital and pick up replacements. Can't do that anymore. So that expense has now come into the rescue world. And that's not going to get any cheaper. It's just, I mean, everybody knows inflation is crazy. So those two reasons, I want to get as close to something that everybody can vote on. But that's why I put together the DD version, which gives us, I believe, when I talk to my peers in the restaurant world, I do believe this spreads out the pain to there's a little bit on everybody, and cigarettes for the first time ever. And we really did look at this and try not to pick on one particular area. And when we've had these conversations since, the first one was March, we had talked about the 3% pay adjustment, which was the 307, 488. We had also talked about covering the 10 points that we just found out what that total was going to be, the 190,341. And the 420 that the county had put together included the 325, the 15.3 one-time grant, and the 80,000 textbooks. So I took the 420 and I added what we found out was the 10 points on the insurance, nothing else. And I said, I think we've been saying since March we were going to cover that. And the way to cover that is with a penny, 4 to 6 on meals and lodging, the 10K tourism campaign, because I'm all for trying to help. And then ends up being a 278, 450 draw from the general. I thought that was lower than that. It is lower than that. Yep, we are down to now a general fund withdrawal need of 157,333, which I think is doable. I think it's as fair as I can figure out. But for that reason, I can't support Mr. Woodson.
Can I just add real quick, just for clarity, just so everybody knows, because I have a lot of constituents calling me, none of these that we've advertised would raise rates on personal property, like your vehicles. None of these things advertised would do any of that. I just wanted to put that.
Yeah, so,
Excuse me.
sorry. So just, I don't want to prolong the rebuttal and rebuttal process, but Ms. Donahue just raised a few things that I wanted to clarify, and I also want to thank all my colleagues. I mean, you can say this for sure, that everyone's very thoughtful, whether you agree or disagree with them. I'm honored to serve with them. On the bus question, I do a lot of, I'm not an accountant, but I do a lot of accounting, and I've asked Bonnie and Gary like 20 times to explain to me how if we write a check from our bank account for buses, how that doesn't reduce the school request. and there's not an easy answer to it. Van, rightly so, pointed to a provision of the Code of Virginia that complicates the accounting. So, being a simple person, I just want to explain it to you simply in the context of my proposal. We are taking money from our bank account and we are paying $300,000 a school for buses. And then, in addition, under my proposal, we are raising revenue and drawing on our fund balance to provide the schools with another $437,000. So it's not this question of including or not including buses. I want to articulate to you as clearly as possible. Bottom line, we wrote a check for buses, $300,000. In addition, we're increasing our funding over last year by $437,000 more dollars, for a total of $737,000 worth of support, regardless of how you want to describe it from an accounting perspective, okay? Next, fire levy. I agree with Debbie's point in part that it is odd that I would not put a penny in here on the fire levy side of the real estate tax bill. I don't like this idea actually of the separate fire levy, fire services fund. I think it's an artificial construct that is confusing, because when we talk to you, it's really easy for us to say, oh, we're like tonight, we're raising the real estate tax rate by a penny. Oh, and by the way, there's another penny on the fire levy. Well, that's real estate too, and it also generates $200,000 in revenue. I don't like it, and the fact is, we've demonstrated as a board on your behalf that we are dedicated to ensuring public safety no matter what. We approved the purchase of life packs for those volunteer fire and rescue companies that wanted them. Life Pack 35 is a key life-saving first responder tool. We did it because we know it's important. Did anyone call us and complain? Say, I can't believe you're going to spend $400,000 in Life Pack 35s? They did it. And did that or did that not relate to the fire services fund? I suppose, again, from an accounting perspective, but in the end, it's your money and it's in the bank and we used it for public safety. And I believe that showing restraint here and increasing our real estate tax rate back to the equalized rate of 56 cents and not doing anything on the fire levy is okay. It's okay because we're going to do what we need to do for our fire and rescue companies and our paid paramedics. Finally, why am I so restrained? And this is where I started this discussion, I don't know, 2 months ago. And I don't want to beat a dead horse very quickly. I work in tariff law. That's what I do, 25 years. Mr. Knight held up the Wall Street Journal. Wall Street Journal is not a publication that cries wolf. And he held that headline up, and having gone to school in Seattle, Washington, I can tell you that thinking back to when I was there in the mid-1990s, I don't recall ever Microsoft Corporation laying off anybody. And as I'm leaving the house tonight, the CEO of Walmart just told everyone, price increases are coming. Tariffs are paid by US companies who charge retailers for their costs, and those costs are passed on to you. This is not the year to raise taxes.
Absolutely.
And I'm trying to equalize the rate to 56 cents, which is a departure from where I started, which was 0. But I'm okay because we made the wise decision, not poor planning, the wise decision to hold back a penny when we could. And so now we're going to pull it back in. And I think in the economic setting that we are about to find ourselves, I hope my colleagues read some of the 20 texts that I sent out with headlines about doom and gloom and inflation and people losing jobs, because I think we all have to keep that in mind. And we have taken care of our house on the county side. I think the school does a good job, and I think they can do a better job. I feel like we've been doing a good job on the county side. We haven't raised taxes, and we're paying for a lot more stuff today than we were 6 years ago. So I just want to be clear on those points. I don't expect unanimous support for my proposal, but I hope we'll have a majority and we can go home.
Can I ask a question, Dr. Grimm? So are you able to hire instructional staff on funds out of the general fund?
If you were to allocate them each year as recurring, I would not recommend doing that.
No, I'm just saying, this year, if we give you a tranche from this year, can you hire a special ed teacher? For instance,
I mean,
with a one-time,
Yes.
with a one-time.
You could, but that's usually never best practice for recurring costs. Same with when we had ESSER funds, we really tried not to use those for recurring costs that we would have to come back every year, and then there's an increase on the benefits or the raises, so that's.
So between the 18% healthcare increase and the 3% salary raise, that's $500,000.
Wow, yeah.
Right there, that's $500,000. That's what we're talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, would you, as a school board, be okay if we just didn't give the teachers the raise this year?
Board. I mean, I can't not give them the raise. We're gonna have to find a way to give them the raise because it's state mandate for SOQ positions.
Okay, so we're talking the $500,000 we're talking about here. This is basically what we're talking about. Is gonna go to pay the health insurance premium, which skyrocketed 18%.
Only 10% of it, just.
Only 10%, but it's total skyrocketed 18%, and the raises.
Mhm.
So, but you can't you can't do that with one-time costs because they're recurring. And so we need to make sure that they're there next year. So this is not a dog and pony. This is trying to figure out how to pay for this. This is like so ledger sensitive. And Mr. Knight and I had a good email exchange about this. I'm at a conundrum. I don't know how to do what the governor has asked us to do. That's why we're sitting here talking about this. And we can't hire 3 people that the school needs. So that's what we're talking about. I do not want to tax you guys. I don't. I really, really don't. And I don't want to. But we need to pay for this. We need to take care of our own people. That's what we need to do in Rappahannock. We need to take care of our own people, just like we just had a courthouse discussion. People have not put the money in there because people in Rappahannock don't want to spend the money, and I get it. I really, really get it. But at some point, I have to be able to think about what is best for this county. And so we either give the teachers raises or we don't. I think we have to pay for the healthcare costs.
If they have $120,000 available to them, that's flexible in their, Shannon, what's the
infrastructure fund?
The infrastructure funding, there's 120 that the school board could bring into play to cover any gap. Like under my proposal of 437, if your school board approved it, they could pull 120 in and you'd be at 557.
That's instead of buying a bus.
Right, which we've already ordered 2 out of 4.
I'm just making, it's not new money, it's just instead of buying a bus, and then you tackle the bus in the future.
But we've already heard the statement that it's very likely that they may need to pivot and not buy a bus anyway. So, and buses haven't been being bought for several years now, which is why this board had to step in and buy a bus.
But so I just wanted to be really clear. These are not elected decisions on our school board. This is not the superintendent saying, we're going to do a 3% salary increase and an 18% healthcare increase. This is the driver of this. That's not their decision.
That's right.
This is not their decision. So they've come to us, asking us to kind of figure out how to do this. And your staff and you have done a fantastic job, and you guys have done a fantastic job. And we're basically very close to finding how we do this. It's just, Mr. Whitson, your scenario doesn't add enough recurring revenue to cover what they need to cover.
They can grab 120 out of it.
But that doesn't pay for the school bus. And my point is that we've continued to put it off.
Anyway, I made my case.
Listen, I won't be on this board next year, but it would be my continuing recommendation that if this board wants a school to buy buses, they should buy them for them themselves. Because clearly, building buses into school budgets doesn't work, because it's seen as a pivot point where they can walk away from the bus and use the money for other things.
That's not true.
And that's not fair.
That's not true.
Because we've already been told that this year.
No, we have not.
So we're allowing them to do what they told us.
No, we
they
have not
might
been told.
do.
That's just factually not true. Do you want to read the
Shannon
email?
said-
I'll read you the email. Should I read the email?
That's today's email. I'm
Shannon, do you
talking
wanna
about a previous email, Mr. Carney, where Shannon said if things got tight, they could pivot the bus fund for this year to other uses. I understand that you're talking about the email we received today. I'm talking about a previous email we received from Dr. Grimsley, that if things got tight, they could pivot the bus money to other uses.
To recurring capital-related, facilities-related recurring expenses.
That's correct.
But that's reducing because you all did purchase two. We had one in our request. It made sense. I don't have two in my request. I can't reduce that funding. So you understand that the only time that we did not purchase a bus with those fundings were when we were having those conversations on how to reduce our bottom line to save the county from having to raise taxes. So we did that in a spirit of saying, okay, well, we can maybe chug along a little better with these. We just replaced an engine that cost $24,000 in one of our buses. Maybe it can chug along a little longer. In FY19, we had 2 buses behind, and we didn't purchase that year. It was the last year of our lease purchase agreement, and that's why we said it's going to be way too much to add on to that. But moving forward in our infrastructure modernization line, the state is giving us money. How great is that? With a floor of $200,000, and if we build a bus into that, which can only be used for infrastructure modernization, no teachers, no instruction, no health insurance, just facility stuff, and bus purchases were part of that. So we built it into the budget as a mechanism to save the county from falling behind. The only times we didn't purchase a bus with that was the last 2 where we worked with you all in those conversations and said, isn't that something you can do so we can bring down the bottom line? Well, maybe this year, but it's not because we received money that we were supposed to spend on a bus and spend it on other things. So please do not question the integrity of that process.
But you said previously that this year you could pivot from buses again and do other things with that money.
To the infrastructure line,
Yes,
just as we
that's
did
correct.
before, just
And
as we did before. in the
reorganize your
last
budget,
few
as
years.
is your job as a school board and as the superintendent.
Because you did buy 2 buses, so you
Yes,
have
great.
that flexibility.
But my
I'm
point,
glad I came up with that.
my point was they need
Very
school
important.
buses. And if we had done this when the school buses were $70,000 as opposed to $150,000, and if we had bought the generator that we just bought in 2012, which is way before, sorry, Marlene, I'm just in the middle of just trying to make just a short point. We can vote on this. But my point is that it just gets more expensive. We're gonna have to buy more school buses. It's not something we can just stick our head in the sand and say we're not gonna do it. I know you're not saying that. I'm just saying that it gets more expensive.
It's my idea to buy 2 this year.
Well, we are buying 2. It's just that we're not gonna get the instructional staff that they need above the required mandate for the salary increase and the healthcare increase.
So you're gonna put a departmental or line item oversight on the school budget to make sure that they spend the money that we're allocating and the way that we're allocating it? Are you gonna insert any kind of oversight? That's what I hear people want.
And let me just clear the record. In 1992, this county had a referendum. Before that, in Virginia, school boards can be appointed. There are 12 localities in Virginia where school boards are still appointed. In 1992, there was a countywide referendum, and the people voted to elect the school board members. It is not our job to sit in their position. It is our job to decide whether we're going to raise taxes or not. That is our job. We have that incredibly undesirable job. And that's what we all ran for. We do not have the job to sit in their seat. And I don't want to sit in their seat. However, that has informed me to think and to respect that position because it's elected. They're your representative. Just like I'm your representative on this side, and you guys come and say, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. You go to them and say, do this, do this, do this. But it's representative. So, I don't want to itemize stuff because that's what the county used to do. And I think it is very bad practice and policy when the school boards in Virginia, when they adjudicate things, have more power than the court do. They have incredible amounts of power in Virginia if they're not appointed, which they are not. Now, county could always have a referendum and take that back, but I hope it doesn't, because I appreciate that representation. So anyway,
So I
you guys
think
wanna
the
vote?
question is that you have bylaws, so I think I have a right to this.
No,
No.
Ms. Freeman, it's just that we don't really go back and forth. Should we vote? Should we
I
vote?
think we should vote.
They got the money.
Call the question.
So this is,
Roll call.
yeah, adoption of the resolution approving the fiscal year budget that tracks the Mr. Whitson's KW budget option.
Ms. Donna, I had one last thing, because we've covered a lot of time since I said this, but again, for the record, I don't believe that we can adopt any of the other two resolutions tonight, potentially legally, pending some advice from our county attorney, in my opinion, for whatever that's worth. And I don't mean to put us in a pickle, but I think it's really dangerous. We're talking about a public hearing in the future on something that you're contemplating in two other scenarios.
Mr. Curry, I think when we talked about it earlier, you said that has been done before.
Well, this board has done it in past years for the exact same subject. It's done in most localities that I'm aware of the same exact way. And in adopting your budget, the budget language is very clear, both in the state code and in your budget resolution, that it is acceptable. It does, of course, forecast a required amount of revenue to cover the expenses that include in your budget. This budget is, as in the resolution, is mostly about expenses. And it does mandate a certain amount of revenue to cover those expenses. And you will, by July 1, have to come up with what those revenues are.
I believe when we've been in, I apologize for not having immediate recollection of past years, but this is unusual because if you look at our meals and lodging tax rate, to the best of my knowledge, if we have had in recent years a hearing that came later, I don't believe that we ever were in a position of contemplating the adoption of updated ordinance with an increased tax rate before the hearing took place.
In that past year, you opted ultimately not to raise that meals and lodging tax.
Correct.
However, the budget document contemplated it.
It did. But
And the numbers
That's
and the
what we did.
revenue
Yeah.
identified that was going to happen.
Right.
Now, there were other revenues that came in, interest income, that came in higher than expected, that allowed the board to not take that later step.
I'll continue to advocate, and I know this is very unpopular, but I do believe that, we do have an asset that we don't have on the books with our money in the bank for the VADI project through NSVRC. And those are funds on deposit garnering $20,000 in interest every month, for which we make no recognition. And I know I'll get the lecture, only a portion of that can actually be designated and possibly recouped by the county. But the statement has been made that at the end of the project, we will surely get the interest back. So I continue to not understand why we would not recognize that revenue source. I know it's complicated, there's a lot of parties involved, but the passage of time will not make it any easier to recognize.
I've confirmed, I think I shared with the board and the broadband authority to whom the money is owned, that you can receive that one-time interest lump payment anytime you want. So, but it is one-time money. It doesn't fix a structural recurring expense.
Right.
All right, we're called for the vote. Mr. Wilson?
surprise, surprise, aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Ms.
Nay.
Coleman? Mr. Barney?
Me?
Yep.
Nay.
What are they voting?
Sorry. I
Just
did everything.
Kier's
And-
proposal.
I nay also.
Chair Donnelly, can we take a 5-minute recess, please?
Amen, sir. 5-minute recess.
We got it.